sponsor, Roche Products India Private Limited, our knowledge partner, and Taj Group of Hotels, our hospitality partner, to heighten the awareness about this disease. The week and its parent company, Malayalam Manorama Company Limited, has been in the forefront of such effective, timely social interventions across its several years of existence. Some such key interventions range from Save the Heart initiative, which is aimed at aiding people who are less privileged to undergo heart surgery, to areas like water conservation, aimed at innovative ways of water harvesting and water conservation. Malayalam Manorama Group has always demonstrated its commitment in an impactful manner. This organizational commitment has percolated down to everything that we do at the week also. The Week Man of the Year, awarded at the end of every year, is a demonstration of our consistent commitment to social interventions and our encouragement to people who work as change agents in communities. The week's first Man of the Year in 1983 was none other than the eminent social worker, late Baba Ante, who then went on to win Ramon Magsaysay Award in 1985. Man of the Year in 1998, Rajendra Singh went on to win Magsaysay Award in 2001 for his work on community-based water harvesting and water management. Similar are the stories of other Men of the Year in the past 35 years. Over the years, the week's health has covered issues plaguing India's public health care system. It is not just by reporting news, but also by offering context and insights, analyzing details of policy proposals, demystifying complicated healthcare economics, and bringing information about disease, conditions, and wellness issues in an easy-to-understand language. Today, the fight against cancer remains one of the world's biggest health challenges. As per the latest World Health Organization statistics, that is WHO statistics, 13.2 million cancer-related deaths are predicted to occur worldwide by 2030, which is up from a mere 7.6 million in 2008, when the last report was published. Given that cancer still remains the world's biggest killer, we at the Week have continuously focused on the disease and the challenges facing cancer research and treatment in India, along with breakthroughs that are fueling medical advances and bringing new hope for patients affected by this devastating disease. In this conference, we address the challenges facing us and the opportunities to accelerate future progress against cancer. On behalf of Malayalam Manorama, may I take this opportunity to welcome all of you to this one-day conference, especially representative from our presenting sponsor LIC, our knowledge partner Roche Product Private Limited, and the Taj Group of Hotels. Our dear friends from medical fraternity and different NGOs who are participating in panel discussions here, and also those who are here to lead the panel discussions, and above all, this enthusiastic members of the audience. We welcome you all to this great journey in this one-day conference called Fight Cancer, Fight Cure. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Zakaria. As we move forward, we are pleased to let you know that we have put up some lovely posters painted by the children of St. Jude Child Care Center. These posters bring out the colors and talent in the children and the world as seen through their eyes. We would urge you to take a look at the beautiful posters which is put up at the end of the room. Our first session for the day is a panel discussion on the looming threat to all. How can we better manage the disease? To present the session, may I call upon Mr. Satyan Amin, Associate Director, Strategic Accounts, Roche Products India Private Limited. For more than 60 years, Roche has been committed to making a difference to the lives of people in India. From vitamins in the late 50s to the advanced medicines for treating different forms of cancer, bringing the most innovative and path-breaking drugs to Indian patients. Today, Roche is a leader in oncology treatment in India. Mr. Amin has been associated with Roche for more than 4 years. He has made an incredible difference in Roche through his leadership and insights. Mr. Amin joined Roche as an associate director in the Access team. He was given the opportunity to lead the institution sales team and was instrumental in setting up the strategic accounts team. He has contributed in many workshops from vision creation to operating model sprint. Mr. Amin is our moderator for the first 2 panel discussions. Mr. Amin.
Thank you very much. Good morning, everyone. I was told this is an enthusiastic crowd a few minutes ago. Good morning, everyone. Okay, the topic is kind of sad, but that's not how we are. This is a great life, so we should be thankful we are alive and we have one more day. So I want this to be a good conversation. So I hope I am audible all the way in the back, because I certainly can't see you because of the lights. And maybe the closer to the mic is better. So, we talked about statistics. We got quite a few statistics, and this is going to be a statistics conversation as well. Let me start with a provocative question. And let it be a conversation, so just raise your hand or blurt out the answer. We're about 200 people in the room. How many of us or our families do we think will be inflicted with cancer anytime in our lives? Go ahead, just shout it out. Shout out numbers. So the number of people that raise their hands think that we might be affected with cancer, which means I saw about 20 hands. Okay, good. And that is far off, but I'd rather have 20 hands than no hands or 1 hand. Because if the 60 number per lakh is to be believed and the number that I have in my slides, then in a setting of about 200 people, we'll have 0.1% affected with cancer. That's the good news, right? But the 0.1% can be me, the 0.1% can be my friend sitting next to us, or both. Probability is a probability. That doesn't mean कि एक को हो गया तो बाकी किसी को नहीं होगा. And that's the sad reality we must first acknowledge. We have tuned ourselves out. And let me start with me. I do not have cancer-specific coverage insurance. I have been working in this company for 4+ years. But I have the ability to tell my spouse and my mother, please get screened for breast cancer. And they have done it, right? So when we say fight cancer and find the cure, there are people who are working on the cure, but our job is at least to help fight it. And a lot of it begins with awareness and the ability to take some steps. And I want you to go home today with nothing else than this, that we need to be that group of 200 people who will say, I will do something about cancer. One thing, even if it means I'll tell my spouse, I'll get checked or screened, I'll get 10 other people screened, or I'll do something about it. Otherwise, we can just tune ourselves out and enjoy the air condition. Sorry, I'm slightly younger than a lot of you, but I will use harsh words. Okay? So, the statistic is clear, but we don't want to be those like me in a plane where I've tuned myself out to the instructions of the safety life jacket and emergency landing, because I just don't think that I'll ever have to use it. Right? And when the plane lands in an emergency, how many of us will actually remember the proper sequence and the procedure? Because we just don't think it will happen to us. So with that, I think the first thing we need to do is have some context around the disease. Now, 20 hands went up, which means this is a pretty good group in terms of understanding, but let me just raise of hands again. How many of you have a person in a family, friend circle or anywhere that has been afflicted with the disease? Awesome. And then raise your hand or keep it raised if you know enough about that disease and what could have been done to either prevent it or mitigate it. Good. Quite less. And then raise your hand if you are actively working to actually do something about it. Very good. Very good. I'm very happy with that. With that, let me then set some quick context for those that do not have their hand raised. So we bring everybody on the same platform and then we can have the panel discussion. So can I have the slides, please? Alright, so the first slide you see is just a very high level slide on cancer. And I'll use this side, will not be able to project there, so follow along the dot, the green dot, and go along with me. Our body comprises of cells, and these cells function in the manner they are supposed to. But sometimes some cells function erratically. And when that happens, it can potentially be something that's cancerous. So they either begin to divide, and divide uncontrollably, or they can grow. They can grow in a manner which is not normal, okay, and then they can do other things, or they can mutate. So this is the DNA strand, let's say the deoxyribonucleic acid structure, the very last piece, and the sequencing of the genomes here can also alter or mutate. And when that happens, something crazy happens. So that can happen, and it can change the immune system or the way we work. And then they can spread. So it doesn't mean that, and it also doesn't mean that it always spreads, but they can spread. These cells that behave erratically can spread. And here you have in a diagram the human body and the most common cells, affected areas, and how they can spread. So for example, let's take the breast side. Here's the breast cancer, and they can spread to the lymph nodes as well as the brain as well as the lower area. You can have the lungs, and lungs can also do something similar. You can have the ovary or the abdomen area, and you can see how it spreads. So when we hear, and the blood is not represented here, but there's blood cancer as well, in different types. So there's many different types of cancer. But it can start somewhere and then spread. And many times, given our ability to detect, it has already started spreading before we have detected it, right? So as you will learn, or we have learned in our lives, early detection is potentially curable. We need to detect early. Okay, so here are just some more stats in terms of if you have a pie chart and look at how many cases of cancer are there for a certain specific type, just to see what's the most common. Let's ignore this half of it approximately which says other cancers, which can be a lot of other small cancers lumped up. The biggest two are breast cancer and lip or oral cavity, head and neck, let's say. So they two are the biggest, and all the pan gutka loving crowd and smoking crowd, we do have this lung and or head and neck area affected, so that's a big piece. Many people believe, okay, we must have done something, some karma, some sin, not feeding the babies and all that, and that's why somebody got breast cancer. Now there's not that it is all karma, and it's also not that there is not some science to it, but we do need to be aware that a large portion of it is not lifestyle in case of something like a breast cancer. It is genetic, it could happen to anybody at any time, right? Whereas with gutka, it could be largely because of what you do to your body. So it's a mixture of how you live your life as well as mutations that could be just random. Then we have the cervix uteri and the lung, then we have stomach area, and then like I said, there's everything else. So this high level just gives you a picture of what we are dealing with in India. Here's a bunch of numbers. On the left hand side, you'll see the incidence, which is the number of new cases, let's say, that happen in a year. And this is on an adjusted basis for age as well as per 1 lakh cases or population. So the high way to read it is about 25 or 27 cases of breast cancer for about 1 lakh people. And yes, breast cancer also happens to men, though a very small portion. Okay, now for this number over here, it shows how many actually end up dying. Which means if this chart, this line is as long as this line, most of them end up dying. In a large number of cases, you will see this number and this number pretty similar, which means we're dealing with something that is leading towards mortality. Which means every day is important. Which means whatever we can do, the best that we can do, we should. Because ultimately, we are looking at death. If you are in the late stages, or if you've not done something to wait for a long while. Alright, so I won't go through the specific ones. We can have these given again or shared on WhatsApp groups. But the big three are the same here, and you can see that there's pretty high number of mortality here. Alright, we like to compare ourselves, and we either choose sometimes the Western countries because we think they're ahead, and then we choose for financial purposes or the emerging countries. So here we see the Americas, and what this shows is This is the diagnosis. This is a 5-year survival rate. Okay, and this is only for breast cancer. So it shows that about in the 90s, about 80 some people out of 100 would survive for 5 years at least, and then 6, 7, 8, 9 years, yeah, there could be progression or death, but for 5 years survival. Pretty high number, and a pretty good number to actually look at. And you can see that because of advances or the way they treat the disease, this number has slowly moved up, which is also a good sign. Now we look at Europe, and because of the number of countries and the breakup here, it's in 60 to 80s, but again, a number that has caught up and is approaching 80 as an average. You look at Asia South, and then probably this is Malaysia, Singapore, and Thailand, and you look at India, which is this chart, or this chart. Okay, and India is not there, up there. At least there's a difference about 15 to 20 points. And that's a gap we might want to try and bridge. Now we look at potential treatments. And there's two that are not mentioned here, and we'll go from bottom up to be fair. So probably the oldest is surgery, when we had nothing and something got affected with cancer, easy to cut it out. If it's possible, cut it out and hope that the rest of the body doesn't have it. That's surgery. Then came radiation. Radiation means you're using high levels of energy in an area where you are affected with cancer so that it can destroy those cells and therefore stop the growth. Again, because you are affecting an area of the body, the energy doesn't differentiate between good cells and bad cells, and you have generally pain or weakness and other side effects being caused to the other parts of the body as well. And those are the side effects for radiation. Then came chemotherapy, which is pharmaceuticals or drugs. And these drugs killed cells that were growing rapidly. But they were used because they're in the bloodstream, they go all over the body. And therefore what happens is even the good cells who are rapidly dividing, which are good cells that we need, also get affected and killed. And that's the bad side with chemotherapy. So we have chemotherapy. We then went to the world of diagnostic tests that were beyond just the fact that, okay, somebody has cancer. And there will be specific biomarker tests, which says not just that you have breast cancer, but you have a specific mutation and therefore you are HER2 positive. Or you are something else, right? And so you can zoom in. Or for lung, you are ALK positive. So we have specific diagnostic tests that are beyond the typical tests that show that you have cancer. There are vaccines. We'll skip this because this is a loaded area. But would be great for finding a cure. Then we have CAR T therapy. So T lymphocytes are the cells on our side which fight cancer cells. And chimeric antigen receptor is something that is attached to the T lymphocyte so that they can better detect and fight against cancer cells. So that's CAR T therapy. And about 40 years of work on something called immuno-oncology or immunotherapy shaped output in about 2017. And that's immunotherapy. And actually targeted therapy came before, so let's go to targeted therapy first and we'll come to immunology. Targeted therapy was the same thing as chemotherapy, but the R&D learned to attack specifically just the cancer cells that they wanted to. So it's targeted, and that's why the name targeted therapy. Many of them are monoclonal antibodies, and therefore you will see the words MAB at the end of the generic name on the pack. And now we have immunotherapy, like I said, which does something to the immune system of the body and actually helps it fight cancer cells. So instead of focusing on the cancer piece and the cancer cell, we are focusing on our immune system and helping it do something better. And that's immunotherapy. Now, why is this here? And this is just a stab at it. What this shows is that at a very basic level, surgery, radiation, and then chemotherapy is covered in many insurance cases. By the way, insurance, the private insurance that we speak in, the fact that LIC is here as a partner, that piece is a very small piece, but it needs to grow, and that's the purpose of this. They do not cover a lot of these new age therapies, and therefore I have the panel members sitting and my dear oncologists who deal with the daily frustration probably that something that they want to do is not able to be given effect because their reimbursement mechanism doesn't cover it. So when we select an insurance product, one of the things when we say, I will do something today, I might want to go and look at my insurance policy to see if it covers cancer, what types of treatment, and if not, with a top-up or any other mechanism, would I be able to cover myself for the best? So, in the reimbursed groups that exist in the country, which is employee state insurance, defense, railways, CGHS, etc., a lot of these other things are covered. We have other issues that we have to deal with as we talk in the discussion, if we get to, which limit the usage there as well, or procedural hurdles. But by and large, this gives you the fact, what are we dealing with now? The fact that only this is covered is something that, again, I as an individual and a person in the pharmaceutical sector am not happy with. And so the insurance regulatory body, the RDI, is basically the one who has to change their policy language for what needs to be covered. And when they move beyond chemotherapy to defining everything, then we can get insurance companies to cover. What does that mean? It will mean that automatically insurance premiums will rise because insurance companies have to get the money from somewhere. But let it rise, because the rise will be a few hundreds of thousands of rupees, but it will help everybody versus turning a blind eye and not treating. Is this good? Everybody okay with this so far? Okay. All right. And now we'll talk about access. So that's the second panel. And this word is magical, access. Whoever coined it, if I can meet him or her. Okay. Because access can be defined by any company the way they want to. What is truly access? Is it just the ability to make sure my product reaches you? Or for a particular intervention to happen? Or is it the fact that we will make sure that everything else, including cost, transportation, the way to take it, the side effects, your lifestyle, your reputation is also managed, and you have access to all of this together that you need. Here's a grim picture. Imagine there's 100 people who have incidences of cancer, and these are cancer for which Roche has treatments for, Roche the company I work for. So this picture will be very different if you look at the entire disease burden in India, might be even grimmer. Of these 100 people, our internal estimates show that only about 50% end up reaching a place which treats cancer, or so-called tertiary care facility. So many others either get misdiagnosed, think, okay, they may have cancer but don't get tested. I'm just making it up, very few of them who wouldn't want to. Or they make it but not to a cancer treating facility, something else. I've heard so many examples where somebody was treated for tuberculosis or something else on the coughing side when it was actually lung cancer. My friend in the year had relayed a story to me at once. Only if 6 months difference would have been given to that person, where the doctor would have, at the general practitioner's level, said that looks potentially something else, let's get checked for cancer. The life of that individual beyond that 6 months would have been very different. So there's many hurdles, and we'll try to talk about them. And the next bit is, out of these 50, so we'll call them as accessible. Access on standard of care is only about 11% of the total. So about a third. Half and then a third. Which means you may be able to get surgery maybe, and if surgery is the only thing you need, great. Let's say we'll count that in the SOC. But if you actually need surgery, as well as some chemotherapy or radiation or some targeted therapy to actually give you the best outcome, then that standard of care you're not getting, because you've landed here but you're not getting this. And that's the frustration of the system. So we believe it's only 11%, which is a very small number. And why is this and what do we do is something we'll talk about today. So this gives you a picture of the access. And what it will result is, if we are able to accomplish this, not today but sometime, then we will end up doing a lot of this, and it will help all stakeholders. So hopefully this gives you a picture of the access level and the disease area, and lets us kickstart the discussion. Is that okay? Thank you. So with that, let me call the panel members one by one for the first panel. And then as they're making their way here, I'll introduce them. So, my pleasure, Dr. Harit Chaturvedi first. He's a chairman, Max Institute of Cancer Care. And while he's getting mic'd up and takes his seat, he leads the oncology team at Max Healthcare, primarily a chain in the northern India, but expanding rapidly. And this team consists of 80 oncologists spread over 7 super specialty centers. How important is this man for us? He is the president-elect of Indian Association of Surgical Oncologists, and until recently was also the president of Indian Society of Oncology. Prior to joining Max Healthcare, Dr. Chaturvedi was associated with Rajiv Gandhi Cancer Institute, RGCI, in New Delhi from 2004 to 2009, Apollo Hospital, New Delhi, 2000 to 2004, and Bhadra Hospital, New Delhi, 1995 to 1999. Is that correct, Dr. Chaturvedi? Thank you very much for coming here today. Our second panelist is Mr. Gul Kriplani. Sir, please come up on stage. And he represents Terry Fox. Terry Fox is a Canadian foundation that raises funds for cancer research. For over 30 years, Terry Fox, and by the way, I just heard about this name over the weekend when I started preparing for this. So that's how much we know the word. Terry Fox Foundation has worked to achieve Terry's vision, which is a world without cancer. Now, Mr. Gul Kriplani is the chairman and managing director of PGK Group of Companies, and this is just where his accolades start. That's an organization involved in export of frozen seafood and has been in the business for 49 years. Mr. Kriplani has led several delegations on behalf of the industry, as well as being part of several delegations to Israel, Taiwan, France, UK, and Belgium. That's on the business side. He's been past president of Indian Merchants Chamber, past president of Rotary Club of Mumbai, past president of Maharashtra chapter of International Christian Chamber of Commerce, past national president of Indo-Canadian Business Chamber, and has received, apart from this, many honors. And I would request Dr. Bharat Bhosle to please come up on stage. Dr. Bharat Bhosle is Senior Consultant Oncologist at Bombay Hospital and Medical Research Center in Mumbai since November 2013. He is also a visiting consultant oncologist at other prestigious hospitals in Mumbai, including Jaslo, SL Raheja, Fortis Hospital, Holy Spirit Hospital. Earlier, Dr. Bhosle served as a consultant from medical oncologist in the Department of Medical Oncology at Tata Memorial Hospital, none other than that, in Mumbai from June 2012 for about 18 months. Thank you, Dr. Bhosle, for coming here. And then the last panelist is Dr. Nirmal Rawat, sir. Please come up on stage. Dr. Nirmal Rawat is a leading cancer specialist. He currently is practicing as a visiting consultant at various cancer centers in Mumbai. Holds an MD postgraduate degree and a professional diploma in clinical research, PDCR. He is a European certified medical oncologist accredited by the European Society of Medical Oncology. Dr. Rawat's research papers and articles have been published in the International Journal of Radiation Oncology, Biology Physics, Red Journal, and the Indian Journal of Medical and Pediatric Oncology. And if I believe my friend Inder, he is one of the few who has these many titles to his name. One of the very, 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 very few. So thank you very much for joining us, Doctor. And now I'm going to hopefully sit and enjoy while I just have to ask questions and hope my panelists can drive the discussion ahead. So we start with the introduction because the topic is disease management. Disease management is an approach to healthcare that teaches the patient, doctor or caregiver on how to manage the disease. Now, managing the disease is a broad term. When we have diabetes, we think managing the disease is just food intake, exercise, and your medicine. Maybe more than that. Similarly, cancer is also more than that. And managing the disease may be also split into two parts. One, ideally before the disease strikes, which means what can I do to prevent the disease, or once I know that this is potentially cancerous, what do I do, right, until I reach that tertiary care facility. Or it could be after, once they have reached the facility, are in your good hands, and then you have extensive work with them. So, Dr. Chaturvedi, maybe we'll start with you. From your perspective, sir, please give us an idea of what are the elements that you and your colleagues deal today when we talk about disease management.
I actually talk about the spectrum of disease. So before diagnosis, there's something prevention, something for diagnosis, and within diagnosis, something we can do all for early diagnosis. because in our country, as you were showing the data that survival rates are not the same, the big chunk is lost because the advanced stage of the diagnosis happens. And then once the diagnosis happens, then what I use the word is accurate diagnosis. So today there are a lot of tools. For example, if you talk about breast cancer or lung cancer or any cancer, there are a lot of sub-classification. If you understand that sub-classification by using appropriate tests, then you actually know your enemy better, you know your disease better, and you can target your treatment accordingly. For example, you mentioned about targeted drugs, immunotherapy. No, it's not applicable to all patients. So when I talk about disease management, my first part is very, very critical on that left side. If I don't understand the disease properly, if I don't assess the components of disease well, then my plan will go haywire. So when I explain to my patients, I always tell them there are 3 steps. Proper diagnosis, proper staging, and then comes proper planning. If the diagnosis is not complete and proper, if I do not know my ARPR HER2 status, if I do not know the biology of my colon cancer, what is KRAS, BRAF, all those things, if I do not know the components of the genomic profile required for lung cancer, my plan will go haywire. So that is very, very, very critical that a proper assessment of diagnosis is made. And then the next step is a stage of disease. You know it is stage 1, 2, 3, 4, and today it has so happened in our standard guidelines also that based on that biological variables, the staging is also changing. They are incorporating that into staging, and that also is the plan. Now once you have those 2 things fixed, then you make a plan depending on the patient in front of you. For the same disease, same biology, same stage, for a 40-year-old it's a different plan compared to 80-year-old. And that is where the clinician has to play that role of assessing the whole situation and plan accordingly. Does that answer?
Yes, it gives a very good idea about how one approaches disease management from your standpoint. Dr. Rao, maybe you will take this question and go one level deeper, because a lot of conversations have to happen with the patient and their families as you are looking at this specific testing or the treatment plan. As you do this day to day, what struggles do you deal with from a mindset standpoint or the conversation with the patient or their family, etc.? If you can talk about that for a minute.
I'm talking about a patient that I saw 2 days ago. So this was a patient of advanced head and neck cancer, and he came to the OPD and with a handkerchief covering the tumor. And the moment he opened it, the room was full of smelling, and there was a discharge which was coming out. And so I asked the wife of this patient that why were you waiting so long? Why did you not come earlier? So this lady told that if they don't work, then we don't get to eat the bread, the daily bread, So that first bite is to earn the bread, and then since when the tumor started, they knew that there is something wrong, but they did not come to the doctor because of the fear of all the cost that they would have to bear. So what I feel is, if you look at the statistics, you beautifully show that the incidence of cancer is very, very high. The incidence is more in the Western countries, but the deaths, the mortality is very high in the Indian countries. And the reason for that is late diagnosis. So, so I asked this patient that, have you not heard about the government schemes which can help you for taking the treatment? He said that, we have heard about it, but we are not sure how exactly we should do that. So we feel very helpless, at the level of a clinician that, what use is the knowledge that I've gained? I've been trained at Tata and I attend international conferences. So you imagine the level of frustration that we feel at our level that, what is the use of all these advanced technologies and the new research which has come when the patient is not even coming to you in a stage when you can offer him curative options. There are ways and means that he could have afforded the treatment, but he's coming to me at a stage where, you would just give him some painkillers or when a patient comes to us, first we divide it as, is it curative? Our aim of treatment, whether it is curative or whether it is palliative. And the moment you put it in palliative, then it's like just symptomatic treatment. So, it's really frustrating, these kind of. So this is one of the major struggles that we face, that how do these patients reach the hospital at a stage, because how much our medical colleges or training or whatever you do, it's not going to help unless you have the patient at a stage where you can offer the newer treatment options.
Thank you, and let's pick this one up, Dr. Bharat Bhosle, because now you represent in some ways the railways and their beneficiaries and their treatment. We talked about a person who came who was not able to afford or was worried about their daily bread or does not have the right amount of money for their testing. Railways one normally thinks about as fully reimbursed or largely fully reimbursed. Yet there must be struggles that you see that we do not see.
So the experience is from Tata Memorial days, when the treatment was very costly. 10 years back, the cancer treatment was very costly. Some supportive care medicines, like we used to get at 10,000 rupees, the Mucogen, now we have at 1,000 rupees. So cost has definitely come down. What we used to see in our practice, we have a fully reimbursed section, but it is largely restricted to government schemes or CGHS. It is up to 10% or less than 15%. Then there are private schemas where in my practice, though I practice in most of the hospitals in South Bombay, not more than 50% of the patients are getting this coverage. So till today in town, I get almost 60 to 70% of the patients who are paying from their pocket. Now when we talk about the treatment of cancer, it is a heterogeneous group of people who are coming to us. It is not only the head and neck cancer or the breast cancer. There are some blood cancers, there are pediatric malignancies. Madam Dukari is there, she will talk about, and largely these pediatric malignancies are curative. Good thing that with the science, day by day, the cost of treatment is coming up, but still we are facing most of the patients are paying from their pocket. Yes, there are NGOs which are fortunately we are getting help for most of the pediatric patients. But still, there is a challenge for those patients who are paying from the pocket, because the treatment comprises of a surgery or a solid tumor. When I talk about breast cancer, the intention of treatment, as Nirmal rightly said, is curing some of the cases, but unfortunately in India, we still in cities, in breast cancer, if you say, an educated doctor also tries to hide the things. There is some kind of fear. We talk about the awareness, but the most important obstacle is fear. That is why the patient tend to get into wrong stages. They try to avoid it. So, as there is some tumors are curable, some tumors are palliative. In palliative also, if you look at the breast cancer patients, there are some patients in the advanced stages where treated properly, there can be a good palliation. But again, there has to be as you rightly said, patient come from a productive age group. He is the sole organ of the family. It is not like that we have done the surgery today and the patient goes back. Patient has to undergo surgery. Then the patient has to come to me. I am a medical oncologist. I have to treat patient based on the biology of the group. Like sir mentioned, there is something called as a molecular signature. HER2 positive group of a breast cancer requires 1 year of treatment. Now it is a big challenge for me to counsel them to keep the patient's compliance to come to me for a year. Some patient has to come weekly, some patient has to come every 3 weeks. And the cost of the treatment is sometimes beyond their monthly income. So these are the major challenges. Yes, some of malignancies are curable, but we have to motivate them to get the fund. We are fortunate to have some, as I said, some NGOs, some insurance, but largely 50 to 60% of the patients who are coming to me are still paying from the pocket. And then there is attrition. When it comes to the cost of the treatment, then we lose more than half of these patients for the treatment.
Okay, thank you very much. And I think the cost is, we keep hearing this throughout the day on the cost or the funding of it. With that, that's a good cue from Mr. Kriplani. You've done extensive work on the fundraising piece, but perhaps this is a great time to tell the audience about Terry Fox a little bit beyond what I may have introduced, your good work with them and the funding.
Thank you. I must confess, ladies and gentlemen, all the doctors here, I'm in seafood industry and right now I feel like a fish out of the water, not knowing anything about all these technical things on cancer. Yes, I was the president of the Indo-Canadian Business Chamber, and because of that, Terry Fox came and approached us to take up this matter even in India. So 21 years ago, there was a young vice consul in the Canadian consulate, some of you may have heard of him, Sanjeev Chaudhary, who encouraged me to start this run. Our run took place at that time in Priyadarshini Park. 300 students from Cathedral School and I think we collected 7 lakhs rupees on that first run. Over the years, more and more schools have started participating. We have extended our activities, and now the doctors from Tata Memorial Hospital actually go to the various schools that we expect to participate in our run to tell them about the dangers of things like smoking, gutka, and the rest of it. And I believe that's a fantastic point that they are doing, the Tata Memorial doctors. And Terry was a young Canadian. At the age of 18, he got osteogenic sarcoma. Please don't ask me the details of what that means. I've just learned it by heart, and that's what I thought. So he started running. He had his right leg amputated, and he started running on one leg. His point was target to try and make every Canadian aware of this disease and to collect $1 per Canadian. Halfway through, of course, poor Terry was hit again on the other leg, and that was fatal. So in 1980, Terry passed away, but he left a message: let my work continue. So I'm very proud in a way and humble at the same time that I'm able to continue his work. Terry left for us a legacy for the entire world. And today, Mumbai is the first city in the world in terms of collections. We've got Mrs. Kurkure here, who I respect a lot and who has been my partner in the past. But now, Mrs. Kurkure, your colleagues in Tata Memorial have been wonderful too. And this year, we've collected 4.25 crores, which we gave to Tata Memorial. But this money is all for research into cancer. As I hear from the doctors in us, we are also aware in our own committee, in our own foundation in Canada, that there is a lot of demand for taking care of the patients like the ones you mentioned. And this will be the first time. We have the next Terry Fox run on the 2nd of February 2020. And this will be the first time that we will be collecting money not under the name of Terry Fox Foundation, but it will be a separate, just because of context that we have in the city of Mumbai, various schools and the parents of those school children. We will also collect money for the care of the patients who come in. I remember going to Tata Memorial during the days of, during the monsoon days, and you found mothers sitting on the pavement with children in their lap, breastfeeding the child and raining, and it's a terrible way to look at this. So we were fortunate to be able to go to a school, and the school children said, "Uncle, we will collect money for the awning that needs to be put up on Tata Memorial." I went there 2-3 days ago. I was very happy to see that over 100 mothers can sit there and feed their children, even while it may be raining cats and dogs. We do hope that this message of Terry Fox goes round all over India. We have started the run in Chennai. We are trying to start the run in Delhi, trying to start the run in Dehradun, Kolkata, and so on. And one day, I hope, with the help of all you doctors, I don't call you doctors, I call you angels. Truly, you are the angels on this earth who come here to save humanity. And I want to thank you all, and I can only say that one day, when we started 21 years ago, only 2 out of 10 children from the pediatric ward used to go back home. Today, 21 years later, 8 out of 10 children go back home. And in 2020, I hope with the research done by the doctors under Terry Fox grant would make it possible next year that all the 10 children will go home, whatever they may be suffering from. And I want to thank you all.
Yes, sir.
On the behalf of doctors, I'm saying,
Yes.
you're doing a much bigger job. We are all there, definitely, but I think all of us, each one of us here, whether in media or in any other space, the service is the critical thing. And what you have done and what Terry Fox Foundation has done is amazing work. So we are all grateful for that, and I think as doctors, we get a chance to deliver it on the doorstep of the patient. But every force behind it is critical. Whether you help in early diagnosis, whether you help in prevention, whether you help in treating one patient, whether you help in helping for owning on the pavement sheets, everything is critical. So I think each one of us should clap just for the sake of this people here. Really a very big challenge, and we need everyone's support and engagement to make it happen.
And I really appreciate that because I do think that's a cue for us. If we go back home today, apart from learning a few more things on cancer, we say, okay, I'll talk to my spouse, maybe get them screened or tested, maybe look at my insurance.
Absolutely.
One other thing we need to do possibly is to see, can I spend a few minutes in my life helping any other NGO, and it may not be direct financial assistance, fine. A few hundred rupees, fine. It may be your time, it may be your ideas. Stop by St. Jude's or the other NGOs, Indian Cancer Society and others, there's one in your area, and just devote your time. Sometimes that's the best thing, and help them. Because I think that's the way we can make a difference. So coming back to the, yes, sir.
Yeah, which I wanted to say, I forgot. There is a Muslim organization which has helped us for 20 out of 21 years of work. I went and met them about a month ago, and I want to give you all the good news. They have got something called Zakat Fund on the Muslims, and they've said, Mr. Kripalani, go ahead, up to 200,000, whatever amount is needed for care of those children, we will give you under Zakat.
If you see in the US, each citizen will be a part of some NGO, and when I talk to them and I ask them that, why are you, wasting time? I mean, how much you must be using that time for your own work? Why is everybody a part of the NGO? So they were telling that, their experience is that when you become a part of the NGO and you travel with the patient in his journey in the disease, it changes their perspective towards life, Otherwise, they are just cribbing about a small car or a small phone or other things which become very important. But when you stay with these patients and look at the difficulties that they are facing, even their own perspective towards life changes. So it's not just helping someone, but you are also helping yourself change the way you look at life.
Very good. It's a perfect cue for something I had in mind, Dr. Rawat, which is psychological counseling, right? And not just the patient, the caregivers need it too, and a person who is giving this in turn also gets a mental channel, if nothing else, to actually express their emotions in their life. Let's look at that piece of the disease management if we can, because funding certainly is up there. If we part funding for a minute, there's the treatment, then there's everything else. So let's part treatment also for a minute, we'll come back to it. We have insights that say about 40% patients or caregivers could use emotional or psychological counseling at the time they hear that they have cancer. That's when they break down. And if we take a look at two individuals who have pretty much everything else the same in terms of the disease pattern, one that has a stronger will probably survives a lot more. We've seen that. Through stories, we've seen that. I do not know if it's reality, but let's talk about it. So, Dr. Chakravarti, do you, in your experience, think that psychological or emotional counseling is something that should be a part of disease management?
So first and foremost, it is of paramount importance. It is something without which this service, especially cancer news, is difficult to do. So somehow the sad part is that it is taken as a death warrant and through negativities shown all around cancer news that people lose their battle before it starts. So there, the role of the doctors, as the first newsbreaker, as being trained into empathetic conversation, into showing the journey with the element of positivity, what is really there, without telling any lies. It is just the painting the right picture, perspective and hope. And then there should be backed by counselors and psychologists who are part of the team. So, for example, we also at MAX have counselors and psychologists part of the team, and most of the comprehensive centers have that. And that is important, but gradually this role is taken over by the family members, the friends and family, because they are the ones who carry that positivity forward. Otherwise, what happens, the conversation in the hospital becomes artificial if it is back home or negatively. So one thing which always worries me is that when patients come back and tell us that 10 people they met of cancer, people with cancer stories, 9 of them died. I said, unfortunately, they are only talking about the negative stories. The part is that actually they're not telling you that there are 10 other people who are doing well in life. So these are things that are important for the message for the society as a whole. And counseling is important as part of the hospital's responsibility as a team. But also in the society, we need not carry the negativity all the time about this disease and fight it.
Right, and that's why I think we need to smile in between here as well, because while we're talking about doom and doom, no, but there's also things that we can find cure for.
Cancer is a big hope because the things have changed dramatically. You have shown yourself in your slides how the improvements are happening. The good part is almost 1/3 of cancer is preventable. 1/3 can be picked up very early. So if this 65% gets sorted, the remaining that will become very small component. So if we just stop tobacco and none of these things, lifestyle changes, you can prevent almost 35-40% of cancer. And you know of mammographies, of proper screening for the high risk lung cancer population, will pick them early. So these things are solvable issues and the real problem will become actually very small. So there's no gloom, there's no gloom, there's a lot of hope, there's a lot of positivity.
Yes, sir. Welcome.
With Indians is the collection of the data. In the past, we did not have the data about what is happening. So it is always good to look at our own data and to learn many things from it. So recently there was a paper published in the Lancet where actually, as I said, 40% of the cancer deaths, I'm saying 40% of the cancer deaths can be directly stopped just by avoiding the use of tobacco in the form of any form, whether it be chewable or smoking. Because as the slide also says, the lip and oral cavity cancer, largely there the causative agent is tobacco and the lung is smoking. Just keeping oneself away from it, you can prevent 40% of the thing. You need not go for surgery or chemotherapy or radiotherapy. So that message should go to the masses. That is very, very important.
If we find it out well, this should become a good cancer, should become a good positive story for next generations to carry forward.
And so, why don't we resolve, if not let's do that? Because we are here to fight cancer.
Yes.
Why don't we take a resolution today that we will write to the Modi government, we will do things in our state, we will do things with our community which will say, stop the gutkas and the pans and everything. Apart from pollution and everything else, that's money from an income from a household that's actually being wasted on things, to diseases that we are inviting. It's really bad. Why don't we do that to change our lives? Can we do that today?
Absolutely. Week is here to support us. That is wonderful work.
Great. You were saying.
Coming to the psychological impact that you were asking. So this is a case which is right now with me. She's in the ICU. She came to me in the February with a very small lump in the breast. Okay, and I asked her to get an FNAC done. The lump was so small that even an FNAC would have diagnosed that this is a malignancy, and I would have sent it to the surgeon for getting operated. When the lump is a little big, we usually do a biopsy because we need more information before starting chemotherapy. So this lady did not do an FNAC, and now she landed up with a fracture. So she has a fracture of the femur, and we did a PET scan. It shows that now the cancer has spread to the bones of her body, and this is a pathological fracture. So the bones have become weak because of the cancer spreading in the bones. So you look at this, just that stigma has created such a big damage. At February, she was a completely curable, a breast cancer in first stage. The cure rates are 95%. And this lady, just because she did not do the FNAC, and you know the reason why, she feels that if you touch the tumor, it will spread. And now when I'm telling her that let us go and get a biopsy done, there are chances that you might be an estrogen progesterone receptor positive. We can just treat you with oral tablets which are hormonal therapy. And still she has not done a biopsy. And the sad thing is she got operated for a fractured femur. So the general awareness about the disease is this particular. This is not one case. I'm sure all of my colleagues see these cases so often that curative cases because of the improper diagnosis or all these myths around, it makes a big difference. So it's not a small thing. This psychological thing that you're talking is not a small thing. It can make a huge impact.
Thank you. Dr. Boston, let's talk about your journey a bit. When you see patients, and maybe again in the railway setting, I think they might only be a subset of the patients you see, but nonetheless, do you find the need for psychological counseling, but do you find the system today allows something like this as a part of general protocol, because this is generally government or government supported? What are your thoughts there?
So, as a panelist, I have a privilege to work in Mumbai where I have access to all kind of or whether Search institution or Nirmal's institution, we have a DMD, disease management group. This is how the cancer management has evolved in the last decade. And fortunately, when I was in that, I started disease management group. So what is disease management group? It is not only the treating doctor. Apart from this, you have a social worker who plays an important role. You have, as I said, the diagnostics are very important because that is the most important thing which leads my treatment. So I always give the credit to the pathologist, to the radiologist, to the social worker, because as I say, there is 50% or more than that is the attrition rate because of the finances. The patients are not coming for treatment. If the patient doesn't take treatment, how the hell you are going for that 90% cure rate? So these all components are very important. And as I said, in the bigger institute, we have all privileged to have access to social workers, the NGOs. But I always feel about those rural areas of India where majority of the patients come from. It is not even from the big cities in Maharashtra. Coming to Mumbai is a big fear for them, where the patients come to stay. These are all logistics which play a very, very important role. As you said, still those reimbursement are fully insured are not more than 30% of the patient. The first important thing when the patient comes to me is the breaking bad news. And for every cancer specialist, breaking bad news, you have to train yourself socially, psychologically. You have to be in that frame of mind. As Sir said, rightly you have to say the truth, but at the same time, you have to build a positivity inside the patient. So there are patients in stage 4 who, as Dr. Nirmal said, need simple hormonal therapy, which are tablets, which are not very costly. But the patient feels that it is stage 4, that patient is going to die. Now, stage 4 lung cancer nowadays, almost 40 to 50% of the stage 4 lung cancers, which when we were students, they did not go beyond 6 months. Now, one of my patients was diagnosed in 2012 with brain metastasis. She has the ALK mutation. So it is a molecular characteristic in lung cancer where you only give one tablet. The patient is still alive, beyond 6 years. So we were talking about only palliation for those patients. Those patients are living longer. So these realities, with the real life example, we have to tell the patients. Yes, we have to spend more time in the initial counseling. That every doctor should do it. Because then only we can reduce those number of patients who are not coming for the further follow-up. So that kind of interaction with the patient, because the patient has belief in the treating doctor. I cannot always say go back, go outside and meet the NGO person or the social worker person. The patient feels happy to share their problem. So what I do is listen to the patient's problems. So that at least have a confidence that yes, though I am not going to get cured, I will have those number of years ahead of me. That is very important in cancer. And I always tell this positive patient, you have time in future, because somebody is walking on the road with an accident, they don't have a second. But in cancer, yes, today, as in pediatric malignancies, the cure rate has gone beyond 95%. And as I said, 10 years before, when I was in the pediatric department of that hospital, there were a number of problems. The good thing that we learn from that hospital, you involve yourself to arrange the funds for the patient, not only to treat patients. I have a band of doctors who perform and try to get funds for the patient. Even my old patients were no more. Their next generation come to us and they try to contribute funds for. Last month they have done more marrow transplant in this hospital. Totally with the funds from my patients, old patients. So this is how it is everybody's duty. And the insurance plays a very important role. Because sometimes in the future, when we talk about the curing cancer, it is not only the surgery, it is not only the chemotherapy, it is something called the immunotherapy. This is an expensive therapy. Unfortunately, in day-to-day life, when I write to the insurance companies, most of the claims are getting rejected for a curative cancer like breast cancer, where almost 25% of the females are HER2 positive. They need 1 year of targeted therapy, where they can totally change the face of the disease from palliation to the cure. But unfortunately, because of the documentation, though it is all our anti-cancer therapies, because of that chemotherapy, what everybody feels that patients should get only chemotherapy. And somewhere we have to change. 20 to 25% of breast cancer females in a cancer which is the leading cause of incidence as well as the mortality in India, the claims are getting rejected. So then, as you mentioned, we feel frustrated. Sometimes we
It's a 20-year-old drug. It's not a new drug. It's a 20-year-old drug. It still gets and you have a very good example of lung cancer. Stage 4 lung cancer, still the person is 5 years now. Because a lot of target drugs now, unfortunately, they are not being leverage power. But that component of patients initially was 4-5%, which is gradually growing. As we're doing more testing, we're getting more and more inputs about other cancers. For example, this trastuzumab is now applicable for gallbladder cancer, gastric cancer, and these things are getting curable. So when you see a patient and you do a diagnosis and staging, that is not the end of the world. That may be just the beginning of a new journey, and something new may come up. So that perspective of truth with hope is very critical. That is the point.
Right, and I remember at this point, Dr. Sujeet Gupta's sentence to me, his vision is everybody who should be getting a trastuzumab should get a trastuzumab. Right, and I'm glad that we talked about this.
Not just breast, gallbladder cancer.
Yes,
Stomach cancer.
Yeah, so fortunately in our country the drugs are also available at much cheaper rates. Even the Western countries, some of the people from other countries are coming to India because of the cost of treatment. I was in Singapore last month. They were discussing about an MRI and PET CT scan. They don't write it because these are very expensive investigations. And everybody, he was also there, and they were saying in India everybody is getting access to PET scan because the cost has come down significantly. In 10 to 20,000 rupees, we are able to do PET CT scan. So it is not only the treatment, even the investigation is very important to decide my treatment. Right? Some of the time we have a hurdle of not getting those things reimbursed as part of the investigation. When you, as I again say, the investigation is the most important landmark in the treatment of a patient. Because that tells us where I should treat. Sometimes I have to try and I have limited resources, whether the patient is curative or whether the patient is not curative. Sometimes the patients have limited resources. People from the rural area sell their houses and come to Mumbai for treatment. Then it is my duty to guide them. I cannot tell a palliative patient to sell your house and bring the money for the treatment. As a human being, I should tell, don't do anything, go back to your home, whatever cheaper treatment, and whatever gives good quality of life. Because sometimes the interventions are not going to prolong in a palliative setting. But yes, some curative settings, we have to make them positive, that you take all the treatment, your cure rate is more than 90%.
right, and I thank you for bringing this up because now let's flip sides for a minute and talk about our other stakeholder, the government. So summary till now. We have people who presented themselves in the hospital. We say the most important part is the diagnosis or what do I do at this stage. Psychological counseling or emotional counseling is important. And then there's everything else before we get into the treatment. If only patients or caregivers will be fully informed on what is it that is in your mind about them, but that they can see and then the rest of the money can come in to do the diagnosis bit, they may be able to go on to their next stage easier. What is it that the government can do? Let's remove ourselves for a minute. This is a message I want to send to the government, to our partners. What is it that the government can do?
So if I look at the whole spectrum, the government can do a lot of work on early diagnosis. By just our district hospitals and the benefit centers and the super wellness centers and improving the awareness and campaigning and a lot of these things. So I think that part can be very well addressed, or rather I would say that part 70% responsibility the government can own. For example, now there's a commission about screening, that colon cancer, breast cancer, cervical, as I was saying, is already going down for whatever reasons. That is now gradually getting out of the orbit. But more and more importantly, few new things are coming up. So that part, one thing is said. Second thing government can do is about the diagnosis. Now, as we are talking about early biopsies and endoscopies and type of tumor and all that subtyping, this can be made accessible at more district level places rather than just at the big metros or 600 metros. So how that access will happen is a real challenge because I don't know. But I can see that if you have to fight the cancer more, this is the most important step.
Now with Ayushman Bharat coming, there's a chance for us to link to this bit,
Absolutely.
at least in that package.
Absolutely. That cancer should not be as a diagnosis of cancer. The typing of cancer should be linked with the diagnosis of cancer for Ayushman Bharat. That happens when sub-processing anyway becomes a part of the plan.
Right. So Mr. Kripani, perhaps let me get your views, and I know your work may largely be on the funding side, but you have tremendous stakeholders and you're part of delegations, and so you have connections. Have you heard anything on the Ayushman Bharat side, or what can we do in this case that we're talking about? The right diagnosis from your journey at Telefox. How have you heard about this from the patients, families and doctors?
This seminar seems to have given me an idea. Sitting here and I'm going to share that with you. I'm on another foundation called the Transplant Foundation for heart, kidney, and liver for the poorest of the poor. And I'm very happy to tell you that besides what we are doing in our own transplant foundation, the government has stepped in. And now the government of Maharashtra has just given an amount of 300 crores to this transplant foundation, not ours, another one, our friends and those we work in partner with, under the name Mission Muskan. I don't know how many of you have heard of that Mission Muskan. And we are now starting to bring down the cost of that surgery. And this, we are working only for the children, but the other Mission Muskan, they are working for the adults too. And there they are truly taking a lot of funds from the government of Maharashtra. I believe that if we can make a very influential group of people out of the doctors that you have here, out of some of the organizations like yours, Roche and others, we can go to the government of Maharashtra and they will accept our request for funding there too. Therefore, if a child comes to the hospital or even an adult comes to any of the hospitals and they find that the cost is going to be 2 lakhs or 5 lakhs or 10 lakhs, I'm sure the government will be quite prepared to give a part of that money to the patient. And we must start. But I think you should, since you've started this seminar, you should also take the lead in making a group that can approach the government for this.
Thank you. So we're at the tail end of our session, at least on the first panel. Let me turn to you two for a minute. Let's stick to disease management once again. And now we've gotten the initial diagnosis out, let's say, we've gotten the emotional need taken care of, and let's assume for a minute there's financial ability for this family. Are there any other disease management challenges that you see are significant enough to be talked right now? Once you are at this stage, let's start with you, Dr. Nawal.
So, if I get the question right, you are saying that the patient already has the finances arranged?
Correct.
Yeah.
Let's assume that this patient or the family is well-to-do or is reimbursed. We've crossed the barrier of them reaching the facility, which then provides treatment. We've done a good workup on the diagnosis, we know exactly palliative or preventable. And we also have no hesitation on the emotional or the psychological counseling being well prepared. What else is a burden along the way that we need to talk about as we talk about disease management?
Okay, so if we talk about stage 4 cancers, so many of them have treatments already there, but you have a specific benefit to that. But there are, if you see the research that's happening in the US or in the Europe, there are new treatments that are coming, okay? And when we attend conferences, we see that there are some drugs which really have, are like game changers, but they are not available in India. And so for that, how do the patients in those countries get these drugs? Because they participate in clinical trials. Okay, so if you see in India, the amount of clinical trials that are happening are very, very less. Okay, so the access to these drugs is not possible to these patients. Although he has money, but the drug is not available for sale in India. So how do you get this drug? So I think we have to increase the number of trials that are happening also in India, so that these drugs, which will come in the market, say another 3-4 years down the line, but if these patients participate in these trials, then they can start accessing these drugs quite early. And I think that is one challenge, because there is a lot of research that is happening, and there are newer and newer molecules coming every day. And we read about them, but we cannot give it to our patients. So I think that part can also be taken.
As I mentioned in the beginning only, we need to look at what kind of a patient I'm treating, whether it's a pediatric patient, whether the patient has a entire life in front of, and we are giving such therapy which is going to create change in the entire life of the patients. So survivorship is an important issue for a pediatric generation, because as the mortality is more than 90% among the malignancies, these patients want to give a lot of problems in the future. So we have to plan that also. For the geriatric patients in India now, the geriatric population is on increase. So we are seeing patients with 80, 84 years of age with cancer. Well, sometimes the mindset is that not to treat them, but sometimes we end up in seeing patients who are fit than the 50-year-old guy. So these are various challenges for these extreme groups of ages. Then comes the important age group is the productive age group, because as I said, that is the sole earning member of the family, and that person has to go for the treatment, sometimes for 6 months or a year. And then they deal with sometimes the losing of the job, because that is the story, real story, that they come with the story that if I don't go for the job, then I am going to lose the job. So these things also we have to take care of apart from treating them. And then comes the treatment, then comes the compliance, because if there is compliance, then only there is cure. So these things we have to plan, and not only the first consultation, but in between also we have to intervene. We have to see what are the problems, because patient is not only person we are dealing with, it is the entire family. Because entire family is coming to you, even the spouses has to avoid work, come to the hospital with the better health. So these are, the challenges are beyond only treatment.
And I agree with this very much, because right from 40% of the patients still need to travel more than 100 kilometers statistic to adherence/compliance that you talked about. So when we have diabetes, maybe the only thing important is either we're taking our pill on time and food and exercise, like I said. But here, it's more than that. And so many times we've seen, other than funding, including the example that you talked about, which is a mental challenge, that patients just after a while give up and don't want to continue on treatment. And that's another thing we need to be talking about. So one last time, and maybe these are your final words to the audience and me. Anything else on disease management or in general that you would like us to leave with? One more round, just quick.
I feel that there is a saying which says that what gets measured gets better. So if we want to improve the results of cancer in our country, we need to actually measure what is the disease burden. Our data system, the data capturing system is very weak. We today know how many patients come to Tata, but we also know that there are so many patients beyond these big institutes which are diagnosed with cancer. So we really don't know what is our data. Our Indian data, we are lacking in that. So we need to have a very robust data management system to see what's happening where in which part of the country. Like my forte is lung cancer. So if you see lung cancer, earlier you used to see it was like lung cancer is equal to smoking. So most of the smokers would end up with lung cancer. But if today you come to my clinic, I think more than 50% of our patients are non-smokers. Why is this happening? We need to look into that. So treatment is not only giving the medicines and the drugs which are there, but what are the reasons why in the first place did this person have cancer? We'll also have to go into it. We all talk about pollution, but if it was just pollution, I would not have people from the rural villages who live in good natural surroundings. Even they are coming to us. So there are females whose partners don't smoke, and they are living in good, you can say, better conditions than what is in Bombay. But even those people are having lung cancer. So why? So we need to maintain this data, ask questions, looking at this data, that why it is increasing, and I think that can really make a big change.
Epidemiological as well as longitudinal tracking after.
So the important thing in your slide is the accessibility treatment. So large population is not getting their access to the right treatment or standard of care. So the government's role here is very, very important. So I am always worried about those who stay in the rural area because of the problem, because we see those patients here from the metros, hardly we see patients. Do patients travel from the rural areas? They do come, we investigate and send them back, then we don't get the follow-up. So we don't have the data on the follow-ups also. So we have to learn from our own mistakes. Important thing is we have to increase the access. Unless and until everybody is not getting the treatment, there is no point in showing big graphs of improvement in the survival. If 8% of the patients are not getting the standard of care, where I am going to say that I am improving the survival. So the access to the right health, the standard of care is very, very important. We do get lots of expensive drugs today. Right now there is a conference going on in Spain where lots of newer data is discussed. Unfortunately, most of these drugs are still not available in India. Since last 10 years, there is a drug called as Ipilimumab, which is for the melanoma, but still we don't have this drug, very expensive drug. We have to have a research to know which can address our Indian population. Fortunately, there are papers coming out of Tata Memorial Hospital in recent years, and which are addressing the basic needs of our population. We cannot write a molecule of few lakhs for the patients. Otherwise, if I tell the world, the patient is not going to work. So, our country specific solutions are very, very important. That will come from the research, and that is why spending money on research is very, very important. And thanks for the foundation, because you used to work in sarcoma, the amount of work they are doing. But this is about tapenomula metros. There are institutes in the rural area, work is going on. Dr. Badauri from pediatric department, Dr. Kurkure, he goes to, I used to accompany him to a village, a rural village in Konkan area, where he used to, he still goes once in a month, and there is a 200 or 300 patients mobility, where he is trying to come up with a real scenario. These patients cannot afford to lose their daily wages, losing their daily wages. For one day also they cannot afford to come to the hospital. So we need to go to the major population, which is the rural population. We have to look at what is their need, and we have to come up with a need specific answers, rather than talking about always. It is important to know the science and bring the science, but we have to see what we can do for large masses to improve the survival. That is also important.
Thank you. And we'll talk a little bit about this in our second panel discussion. Rani?
What I'm trying to say is that we have seen the conditions of cancer, as one of my colleagues said, is not limited only to the patient, but it's a family that gets involved. Where do these families, where are they put up? There's no place for them. Again, I'm very fortunate to say to all of you that I met a builder. People think of builders as crooks, but no, not all of them are crooks.
Just like not all politicians are.
So one of the builders met with me one afternoon and said, I have some CSR money available. What do you think you should do? So I said, tell me, Mr. So what is your passion? And he said, what? My passion is cancer. So I said, I told him about these patients who come in and feed their children outside the hospital. I'm very happy to advise you that we signed last month an agreement with him. He's constructing a 15-floor dharamsala in a piece of land which was given to us by Chief Minister Prithviraj Chauhan 5 years ago. 5-acre land in African Institute. We are going to put up a 15-story dharamshala for the patients and their families when they first come here. I think that's a great blessing to the city of Kota.
So, sir, you will continue to stay with us for a bit, but on everyone's behalf, I'd like to thank the rest of you. Thank you very much for coming here today.